Chairman Bai, your son threatened me. I'm terrified. Liu Chen's voice dripped with mock fear over the phone. I think I'll just sell all my shares. I can't afford to offend your powerful family. He hung up, silencing the furious roar of a tycoon worth tens of billions. Just 1 month ago, Liu Chen was a broke college student, his family crushed by a mere 100,000 yuan debt, his heart broken by a girl who chose money over him. Today, from the penthouse of a sky-high mansion, with a $50 million supercar in his garage and twin beauties serving him tea, he calmly issued an order that would evaporate billions from his enemy's empire. They called him a fool who got lucky. They didn't know he was a man reborn, armed with secrets from the future, secrets that flashed on his phone like prophecies of ruin for his foes. He didn't just want wealth. He wanted vengeance. And the arrogant family he was crushing today was only the beginning. Chapter 121. Sandra's son's choked sobs gradually subsided in the empty cafeteria. She wiped away her tears, letting out a long sigh as if a huge burden had been lifted. Leaning against Liu Chen's shoulder, her voice carried the fatigue of relief. Leo, I'm sorry. Forgive me for not being able to be with you. Liu Chen didn't respond to that. He simply patted her back gently. He had initially thought Sandra was just a girl eager to climb the social ladder, but he hadn't realized her slender shoulders bore such a heavy burden of vengeance. Yet, the path she had chosen was too naive and too dangerous. This isn't a responsibility you should bear. Liu Chen's voice was soft, yet it carried an undeniable force. No. Sandra shook her head stubbornly. She gave me a new life. I must do something for her death. She looked up, a glimmer in her hazy eyes. Perhaps fate intervened. Through Mark Xing, I gained access to some secrets of the financial world. Not long ago, someone contacted me, and I told him some of the things I knew. And guess what? Just 2 days ago, Vance Wong, that utterly corrupt financial mogul, was arrested. Liu Chen's heart stirred. Andian had actually found Sandra, and Sandra, unwittingly, had become a crucial pawn in his revenge plan. The coincidences of this world were sometimes stranger than the most elaborate scripts. That's good news, Liu Chen said, looking at her cheeks flushed with excitement. So tonight you're... I'm happy, Sandra laughed, a strange beauty blossoming on her tear-stained face. Even though I still don't know who the real killer of my best friend is, knowing that a pest has been removed from this circle, and that I played a small part in it, makes me incredibly happy. So, her intoxication tonight wasn't from sorrow, but from the elation of a successful step towards revenge. Liu Chen looked at her, a mix of emotions in his heart. He didn't try to dissuade her further, only earnestly cautioned, then you must be very careful. Sandra nodded vigorously, then wrapped her arms around his neck again, whispering in his ear with breath like orchids. Don't worry, my dear Junior. Even if it's for you. How about we find a less crowded place? Holding hands, they walked out of the cafeteria. The streetlights cast long shadows of them, and the moon shyly hid behind the clouds. The campus fell silent after 10 at night. As they arrived at the empty basketball court, a different kind of emotion stirred restlessly in the quiet night. That night, the elderly security guard on patrol in that area experienced the most terrifying moment of his career. From a distance, he saw a basketball hoop in the center of the court, in the windless night, creaking with a metallic rubbing sound, violently swaying as if possessed. The old man's legs turned to jelly, and he stammered Buddhist chants until a high-pitched, prolonged scream pierced the night sky, and the eerie swaying abruptly ceased. The next day, the old man submitted his resignation, bought a standing-room-only train ticket, and fled back to his hometown overnight. As Liu Chen walked out of the basketball court, with a flushed and limp Sandra in his arms, he was completely unaware that he had inadvertently caused psychological trauma to an elderly man. After taking Sandra back to her dorm, he returned to his own room, greeted by Kevin Liu's shocked and twisted face. What the hell? Dude, you came back with a limp senior in your arms. What were you doing? Playing basketball. She's tired, Liu Chen replied without batting an eye. Kevin first looked stunned, then seemed to understand something, and genuinely complimented Liu Chen's retreating back. Damn, when it comes to this, you're the most beastly. The next day was the last day of final exams. When the final bell rang, the entire campus instantly broke free from the oppressive sea of exam papers and erupted into a sea of joy. Liu Chen declined everyone's invitations. Downstairs, by the academic building, a black phaeton had been waiting for a long time. He slipped into the back seat, and the car slowly pulled away, leaving the ivory tower, which held youth and memories, under the envious gazes of countless students. His destination was Riverside 1, the sky-high mansion perched at the city's summit, overlooking the entire Evergreen River. The high-speed elevator smoothly ascended to the 50th floor. As the doorbell rang, the door opened. Serena, she stood prettily at the entrance. The moment she saw Liu Chen, her exquisitely beautiful face flushed crimson. She knew what this man's return meant. Mr. Mr. Chen. Just call me Liu Chen, Liu Chen said with a smile as he stepped inside. A faint, pleasant fragrance wafted towards him. Another elegantly charming young woman, Donna Dong, also respectfully greeted him. Sophia Su's arrangements were always so thoughtful, even predicting his visit today. Liu Chen didn't disturb them as they prepared dinner. He walked alone to the spacious balcony. The setting sun was slowly dipping into the river, painting the sky and the water in brilliant gold. He lay back in a comfortable lounge chair, lit a cigarette, enjoying the gentle breeze and the intoxicating scenery. At this moment, possessing a mansion worth hundreds of millions, holding billions in cash, and with stunning women waiting by his side, what more could he ask for? A meticulously prepared candlelight dinner, the atmosphere hazy and ambiguous. However, just as Liu Chen led the shy Serena She into the bedroom, ready for the main course, an unexpected event occurred. Liu Chen. My period came. Liu Chen's mind buzzed. All the romantic atmosphere instantly froze. However, seeing Serena She's bashful expression, full of apology, he quickly adjusted. He led her to the gym, which boasted an unparalleled night view. Before long, Serena She changed into the yoga outfit Liu Chen had first seen her in, a milky white tight-fitting top and gray stretch pants, which perfectly accentuated her flawless figure. Under the dazzling city nightscape, a unique workout began. Sweat, panting, and the quiet serenity of the countless city lights outside the window formed a stark contrast. At midnight, Liu Chen held the warm, soft beauty in his arms, unable to sleep for a long time. He looked at the night view outside the window, scenes from his reborn life flashing through his mind. It all felt like a dream, yet it was so real it brought him peace of mind. Early the next morning, as the first ray of dawn pierced the darkness, Liu Chen was woken up. Serena She had already risen, gently helping him wash and dress, and finally leaving a lingering and affectionate kiss on his lips before seeing him out. Downstairs, a Mercedes S600 and an Audi Q7 were parked, one in front of the other, like two beasts poised for action. Driver Lou and two bodyguards, dressed in suits, stood solemnly. A bodyguard opened the car door for him, and Liu Chen settled into the back seat. The convoy slowly pulled away, smoothly merging into the city traffic, heading towards that battlefield without gunpowder, yet one that could determine the fate of countless people. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Brandon Bai was strolling on the lawn of his mansion with his son, Bryce Bai, earnestly outlining the group's grand future. Bryce, that plot of land in the development zone is the stepping stone for our group to go from tens of billions to hundreds of billions, and even trillions. They didn't know that a storm, capable of shattering all their beautiful dreams, had quietly descended. Chapter 122. The morning sun softly illuminated the manicured lawn of the Bai family mansion, but it couldn't dispel the gloom from Brandon Bai's brow. Suppressing his anger, he spoke to his son in a deliberately slowed tone. Bryce, at this critical juncture, you cannot cause any more trouble for me. That plot of land in the development zone is the stepping stone for our group to go from tens of billions to hundreds of billions, and even trillions. Stabilizing the stock price is the top priority. Bryce Bai, completely oblivious to the company's strategic plans, simply felt his father was making a big deal out of nothing. Fine, for your grand vision, I can endure for now. Brandon Bai breathed a sigh of relief, but still wasn't reassured. He had to drop a bombshell. Make time to have dinner with Liu Chen, and apologize to him while you're at it. What? Bryce exploded on the spot, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Apologize to him? Dad, have you lost your mind? Enough. Brandon Bai finally couldn't suppress his rage, his voice trembling. The show-off you just mentioned now holds over 8 billion of our group's stock. Bryce Bai was completely dumbfounded. He couldn't connect the nonchalant young man from the auction with this terrifying figure that could shake the foundations of his family. But his mind, hollowed out by alcohol and debauchery, could only come to a foolish conclusion. It's fine, Dad. He's just a small shareholder. He'll have to play by our rules, right? We'll control him. Brandon Bai's facial muscles twitched violently, his blood pressure soaring. He gave up on trying to communicate, turned, and walked away, not wanting to see his idiotic son for another second. Bryce, however, pouted, pulled out his phone, and with a self-important, triumphant tone, instructed his subordinate. Help me find Liu Chen's phone number. Yes, to show off from the auction. Meanwhile, Liu Chen's Mercedes S600 was smoothly cruising along Lakeside Avenue. He lowered the window, and the cool morning breeze, mixed with the damp air from Qian Lake, flowed into the car. The sunlight shattered into golden scales on the shimmering lake. Driver Lou, understanding his mood, deliberately slowed down, prolonging the moment of serenity. When the convoy finally stopped in front of Tungshao Capital's headquarters, which overlooked the entire Qian Lake, Liu Chen's mood was excellent. Good morning, boss. Employees greeted him enthusiastically along the way. The exclusive elevator went straight to the top floor, where the twin sisters, Ella and Elia Lin, stood prettily at the elevator entrance, like two lotus flowers on a single stem, welcoming him. Boss, breakfast has been prepared. Would you like it in the dining room, or delivered to your office? Bring it to the office. In the spacious office, The scenery of Chien Lake was visible through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. Elia pushed the dining cart, and with her sister, arranged the exquisite breakfast items on the table in front of Liu Chun. One peeled an egg for him, while the other prepared his utensils. Liu Chun enjoyed the delicious food and the beautiful view outside the window, feeling refreshed and with a hearty appetite. After the meal, a freshly brewed cup of Tiguanyin tea was placed by his hand. He had just taken out a cigarette when Ella immediately picked up a lighter and leaned in to light it for him. Behind him, the twin sisters silently cleared the table. Before him, the infinitely beautiful lake and mountains. Liu Chun felt that coming to work occasionally felt really good. Just then, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. He casually hung up, but the phone quickly rang again. Ella, understanding, answered the phone. Hello, who is this? Oh, Mr. Brycebot. Liu Chun took the phone, only to hear arrogant laughter from the other end. Ha ha ha, quite a nerve. Liu Chun, I'm telling you, immediately delete the video of you insulting me at Zijin Manor. Otherwise, don't blame me if you're marginalized on the board. Liu Chun was stunned for several seconds before he finally understood Bryce's incredibly naive logic. He couldn't help but burst out laughing, his laughter filled with undisguised contempt and pity. You truly are a naive and adorable fool. With that, he hung up the phone directly. He was just about to go to the trading room when his phone rang again. It was another unknown number. He casually answered, and a resonant voice came through. Is this Mr. Liu Chen? This is Brandon Bai. Liu Chen's lips curved into a playful smile. Were these father and son playing good cop, bad cop? He spoke in an exaggerated, almost frightened tone. Chairman Bai, your son just called me and said he'd make my life difficult on the board. I'm very scared. I think I'll just sell all your shares. I can't afford to offend you. I really can't. Without waiting for a response, Liu Chen hung up and immediately turned off his phone. On the other end, Brandon Bai listened to the dial tone, as if struck by lightning. He slammed his fist on the table and roared at his secretary. Tie up that little bastard Bryce Bai and bring him to me. I'm going to beat him to death today. Inside the office, the continuous, pig-like screams soon erupted. Meanwhile, Liu Chen calmly walked into the trading room and gave his final instructions to the two ready teams. The call auction period has begun. Based on market rhythm, liquidate positions in an orderly manner. The opening bell rang, and Blue City Group's stock price continued its strong upward momentum. However, in the frenzied optimism of the public, a massive and orderly selling pressure, like a cold iron gate, firmly suppressed the rising trend. All sell orders were neatly placed in blocks of 888 shares, as if silently provoking the entire market. Damn it, it's a lone wolf. Take him down. Countless retail investors and institutions were enraged. They surged in like enraged bulls, attempting to overwhelm this arrogant opponent with a flood of capital. And this was exactly what Liu Chen wanted. He needed this frenzy to provide the massive liquidity necessary for his $8.8 billion in funds to escape smoothly. The morning session closed, and the trading room erupted in cheers like a mountain and a sea. In just one morning, they had successfully sold off billions of dollars worth of stock. On the other side, Brandon Bai looked at his company's stagnant stock price, feeling a throbbing headache. He knew his plan had reached the edge of a cliff. After giving his son a thorough physical education, Brandon Bai called Elaine Yan. That afternoon, in a luxurious private room at the Ocean Sky Hotel, a dinner that would determine the Bai family's future began. After a few rounds of drinks, Brandon Bai lowered his stance, laid out the whole situation, and pleaded for the Yan family's help. Elaine Yan listened, her charming eyes glinting with calculation. Finally, Brandon Bai, using the excuse of young people should talk, left early, leaving the stage to his useless son. Elaine Yan, holding her wine glass, slowly approached the stiff Bryce Bai, her breath like orchids. Little brother Bryce, I think this is our first time alone like this, isn't it? Do you know what you should do when you're alone with a girl? Inside the luxurious private room at the Ocean Sky Hotel, Brandon Bai discreetly left, leaving the air to seemingly solidify. Bryce Bai sat stiffly, his mind in turmoil. He was about to marry a woman known throughout Jinning's high society as having a promiscuous reputation. The thought of stepping onto a metaphorical public bus that countless others had ridden made him feel waves of nausea. What's wrong, little brother Bryce? Elaine Yan's body pressed against his like a snake, her warm breath caressing his ear. Don't know what to do when you're alone with a girl? It's all right, if you don't know, sister. Can teach you. Before she finished speaking, her bodyguard assistant quietly retreated, locking the door from the outside. Bryce's heart sank. He knew there was no escape today. That afternoon, as Elaine Yan's satisfied snores emanated from the disheveled bed, Bryce Bai was wide awake. He had to admit, despite her notorious reputation, this woman could indeed bring him unprecedented experiences in certain areas. Perhaps, aside from the rumors, marrying her didn't seem so utterly unpalatable after all. When the three sat at the negotiating table again, Bryce Bai had become a silent backdrop. Elaine Yan leaned lazily in her chair and, addressing the expectant Brandon Bai, casually stated, Tomorrow, I'll take my husband to finalize our divorce. While we're at it, Bryce and I will also register our marriage. It saves a trip. Both father and son's mouths twitched violently. This woman's style of doing things once again redefined their understanding. But circumstances dictated. After getting Elaine Yan's promise for an answer tonight, Brandon Bai finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the Tungshao Capital trading room at the same time, the atmosphere was completely different. The closing bell rang, signaling the successful sale of 2.5 billion worth of stock today. Liu Chen looked at his slightly fatigued but still exhilarated team and announced with a smile. Everyone has worked hard these past few days. Sophia, whatever anyone needs, do your best to provide it. Food, drinks, entertainment, daily necessities, not necessarily the best, but definitely the most expensive. Amidst good-natured laughter, the team's cohesion strengthened once more. After taking care of all the logistical support, Liu Chen confidently left the company. He sat in the back seat of the smoothly cruising Mercedes S600, basking in the afternoon sun, as his phone screen lit up repeatedly. "My dear, I'm leaving. Take care of yourself. I've folded your clothes and put them in your suitcase." This was Lena Lee's meticulous care. "Big Bad Wolf, I'm leaving. I miss you so much." This was Summer Xia's reluctant, coquettish message. "Thanks, sister will reward you handsomely next semester." This was Sandra Sun's slightly teasing gratitude. There were also Yolanda Yu's sweet flying kisses. Tina Zhang's detailed reports. Liu Chen smiled, replying to each one. His business empire was steadily expanding, and his emotional world was equally well managed. These girls, arranged to take different luxury cars at different times, were all heading to the same airport, enjoying VIP-level journeys home. The convoy finally stopped in a secluded corner of Jining University. Liu Chen, accompanied by 3 well-dressed bodyguards, walked into dormitory building number 5 for the last time. The campus was filled with students pulling suitcases, and the air was thick with the scent of farewells. In the dorm, Kevin Liu was packing. Seeing the entourage behind Liu Chen, his usual exclamation of "Holy shit, son," got stuck and turned into "Holy shit, Leo." Lighting cigarettes, the two discussed their summer plans. Liu Chen learned that Kevin couldn't get a sleeping berth ticket and had to take a hard seat on the train home. He offered to lend him money, but Kevin flatly refused. "Get lost. If I don't have money, I'll just spend less. What kind of person borrows money to spend? I'm not like Jerry." Liu Chen burst out laughing. "All right, I hope you don't become like Jerry. See you next semester." As he walked downstairs, he brushed past Chloe Tan, who was being pulled by her new boyfriend. His gaze passed over them calmly, without the slightest pause. Chloe watched him slip into the slowly approaching Mercedes, followed by a Land Rover, and her heart sank. She knew the distance between her and this man had grown to an unreachable dimension. In the penthouse suite of Riverside 1, Serena Shi, like a wife waiting for her husband to return, gave Liu Chen a gentle hug at the door. The rich aroma of salmon head soup wafted from the kitchen, and everything felt so warm and complete. Liu Chen lay back in the lounge chair on the balcony, watching the sunset, idly browsing the news on his phone. Suddenly, he saw the headline. American programmer successfully buys pizza with 10,000 virtual currencies. Experts claim it has no value. Bitcoin. Liu Chen's pupils contracted sharply, his heart pounded, and he excitedly jumped out of the chair. He slapped his forehead forcefully. Damn it, I almost forgot about this. He wouldn't listen to the calls of any so-called experts. He only knew that this game coin, currently worth only $1 or $2 each, would in the future soar to over $400,000 each. Profits of hundreds of thousands of times. This wasn't just an opportunity. It was the only key to the pinnacle of global wealth. He suppressed his inner euphoria and immediately called Sophia Su. "You, come to Riverside 1 right now." By the time Sophia Su arrived, Liu Chen had regained his usual composure. He looked at his most trusted subordinate and spoke in an unprecedentedly serious tone. "What I'm about to tell you now, only you and I will know. Absolutely no third person can find out. I want you to secretly pour money, heavy sums, through various clandestine channels, to acquire something called Bitcoin. Throughout the process, there must be no direct contact between parties. Secrecy is the paramount objective." Sophia Su had no idea what Bitcoin was, but from Liu Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes, she understood the gravity of the matter. She didn't ask why, only nodded firmly. "Yes, boss, I'll get right to it." After seeing Sophia Su off, Liu Chen let out a long breath. Looking at the setting sun outside the window, his eyes burned with a fire hotter than the evening glow. He stood up with a smile, lifted Serena Shi into his arms, and happily spun around the living room. At this moment, unlike the peace in his home, at the departure hall entrance of Jining International Airport, 2 beautiful girls dragging suitcases confronted each other, poised for battle. Lena Lee, who had just arrived, unexpectedly encountered Summer Xia, who was about to enter after shopping. Their gazes clashed fiercely in the air, and the smell of gunpowder instantly filled the space. In the coffee shop at Jining International Airport, The atmosphere underwent a strange transformation. Just moments ago, Summer Xia and Lena Li had been poised for battle, but now they sat next to each other, whispering, their faces flushed with the kind of blush that only appears when discussing a shared secret. The conversation, which began with tentative probing, gradually delved into an extremely private realm. Ahem, Lena, are you also only good for 30 minutes? Summer Xia's clear, large eyes sparkled with pure curiosity, as if discussing an academic question. Lena Li's face instantly turned crimson. She realized that when it came to the limits of conversation, she was no match for this uninhibited girl. Just as the two were chatting excitedly, a pretty girl with sunglasses at a nearby table quietly pulled her suitcase and, looking guilty, slipped out of the coffee shop. Tina Zhang patted her rather ample chest and let out a long sigh. Oh my god, I hope I didn't just run into Liu Qin's real girlfriend. That would be terrible. But which one is the real one anyway? However, this coincidental harem airport gathering was just beginning. Tina had barely stepped out when she bumped into Sandra's son and then encountered Yolanda Yu, who was looking lost and asking for directions. Sophia Su's meticulously staggered arrangements had ultimately been undone by the airport's single coffee shop. An invisible backyard battle had officially begun. Meanwhile, the instigator, Liu Chun, was lying in his sky-high mansion at Riverside 1, enjoying Serena Shi's tender company, completely oblivious to everything happening at the airport. After a satisfying interlude, he took out a bank card and slipped it into Serena Shi's soft hand. Here, for your spending money. There's $500,000 in it. Serena Shi learned for the first time that a hefty sum of $500,000 could be considered spending money. At the same time, in Zijin Manor, a discussion concerning a family marriage alliance was also proceeding efficiently. Elaine Yin returned home and directly announced to her mother, Lydia Liu, Mom, I'm going to marry Bryce Bai. Neither mother nor daughter showed any emotional reaction to the matter. Their conversation was more like a business negotiation. After confirming the win-win value of this alliance for the family, Lydia Liu nodded in agreement. Her ex-husband, Derek He, who had been left to the side, maintained a humble smile on his face, as if none of it concerned him. That night, after using Derek He for the last time, Elaine Yin tossed him a bank card with $1,000,000 in it as payment for his services over the past year or so. Early the next morning, an extremely absurd scene unfolded at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance. Elaine Yin, arm in arm with her new fiancé, Bryce Bai, coquettishly said to her old flame, Derek He, honey, wait for me outside for a moment. I'm going in to divorce my husband, and then you and I can get married. Bryce Bai felt he had never experienced anything so outrageous in his life. His pent-up anger found nowhere to vent, so he turned and kicked the departing Derek He to the ground, punching and kicking him. Elaine Yin, who had just finalized her divorce, tried to break up the fight, creating a chaotic and comical scene. On the other side, Liu Chun, who woke up in tender luxury, was unaware of any of this. After breakfast, served by Serena Shi, and a lingering farewell at the door, he reluctantly got into his private car and headed to the company. He knew that today was the decisive day for this financial war. At 9 in the morning, Liu Chen appeared punctually in the trading room. As the opening bell rang, a massive wave of buy orders surged in, and Blue City Group's stock price immediately opened higher. The Yin family's funds had arrived. Let's begin, brothers. A cold smile played on Liu Chen's lips. Blue City Group is quite resilient, raising its head again. Let's knock it down. However, the intensity of the battle exceeded everyone's expectations. No matter how many sell orders Tongxiao Capital threw out, the other side absorbed them all without hesitation. Just as the fierce struggle continued, and the stock price became locked in a tug-of-war, Liu Chun received a call from ICN. Elaine Yin married Bryce Bai. ICN's voice was cold. What the hell? Liu Chun couldn't help but swear. When it comes to this, you rich families sure know how to play. ICN ignored his teasing and cut straight to the chase. Now that Blue City Group and Elaine Yin are so deeply intertwined, it will pose a significant threat to my pursuit of equity. So, I hope you can do me a favor and continue to drive down Blue City Group's stock price. Liu Chen smiled. He knew ICN's objective, but why would he harm his own profits for her benefit? He said in a playful tone, Sister Ice, I prioritize making money first, happiness second. Personal grudges. I don't really care much about them. After ICN made the unreasonable request to exchange company shares, Liu Chen ended the call abruptly with a casual, oh, my stomach hurts, gotta go. He didn't want any distractions. Making money was his sole goal at this stage. He hung up the phone and issued new instructions to the trading team. Continue selling, liquidate positions as quickly as possible. Ultimately, before the market closed that afternoon, all of Tongxiao Capital's shares in Blue City Group were successfully cashed out. Liu Chen's personal funds, which had been over $2 billion, now soared to $3.961 billion. As for Blue City Group, although its stock price was barely stabilized with the Yin family's financial support, it came at the cost of borrowing a large amount of high-interest funds and pledging core equity, further increasing the company's risk. Brandon Bai, who had been full of vigor just a few days ago, seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Meanwhile, the offices of Tungshao Capital were filled with jubilation. Liu Chun looked at the astonishing string of numbers in his account and burst out laughing. Everyone has worked hard. Sophia, today is July 1st. Distribute everyone's June salaries and bonuses together. I've decided to allocate 10 million to be distributed as bonuses, based on everyone's performance and contributions. 10 million. The entire office instantly erupted. Everyone was immersed in the euphoria of victory. They knew that following this unusually young boss, there would be limitless possibilities in the future. What they didn't know was that their adversary, Blue City Group, though having weathered the immediate crisis, faced an even greater challenge ahead. In the top-floor office of Tungshao Capital, the smoke of battle had just dissipated, replaced by the quiet joy of victory. Sophia Su gently closed the door, shutting out the lingering celebratory clamor. She walked gracefully across the soft carpet to Liu Chen's large office desk, which overlooked the entire Qian Lake. Her face, usually adorned with a professional smile, now carried a rare hint of worry. Boss, was this bonus too much? Her voice was soft, carrying a barely perceptible hint of caution. Liu Chen detached himself from the thrill of victory and looked at his capable subordinate, who managed everything for him. He couldn't help but smile. My dear girl, the more bonuses I give, the more you receive. I've only been working for a little over a month. I haven't achieved much. Taking so much in bonuses. It makes me uneasy. Sophia Su shook her head. Her loyalty wouldn't allow her to comfortably accept what she considered an excessive reward. Liu Chun stood up, walked to her side, and stood with her, looking out at the shimmering lake. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked, Sophia, do you remember when we first met? This question momentarily made Sophia feel dazed. The confident college student in ordinary clothes, taking the bus to open an account, and the man before her now, who could stir billions in capital in an instant, with a calm and commanding presence. Their figures slowly merged. Had all this really happened in just over a month? It was nothing short of a miracle. All right, Liu Chen's voice brought her back to reality. He patted her shoulder, his tone gentle, yet full of power. Although you haven't been with us long, Tungshao Capital and everything we have today were built by our own hands. We built it together. These words, like the warmest current, instantly washed away all of Sophia Su's unease and doubts. She nodded vigorously, her eyes slightly red, transforming all her gratitude and commitment into that one firm She turned and left, her back straight and efficient. She would repay this recognition with the most perfect execution. Soon, accompanied by the notification sounds of bank transfer messages, all of Tungshao Capital erupted. From the core traders to the head chef, and even the cleaning lady who was deep in thought with double her usual salary, everyone was dizzy with the sudden influx of huge bonuses. This was followed by an unprecedented sense of belonging and enthusiasm for work. Liu Chun, meanwhile, had already gotten into his discreet Mercedes and driven along the picturesque Lakeside Avenue, returning to his home in the clouds. The cold string of numbers in his account, 3.961 billion, didn't make him ecstatic. Instead, it brought an unprecedented sense of calm and control. He knew that his influence over this world had increased by another degree. The door opened, and Serena Shi's face, as delicate as a flower, came into view. Liu Chun laughed and scooped her into his arms, spinning around the living room several times until she gasped in surprise. He then contentedly set her down, leaving a loud kiss on her cheek. He told her he had just made a little money. A cozy candlelight dinner, with a magnificent sunset outside the window. Everything seemed so romantic and perfect. Liu Chun even began to anticipate whether, the day after tomorrow, after this earthly beauty's period ended, he would be able to unlock the legendary deeper intimacies. However, this warm atmosphere was shattered by a sudden phone call. Is this Liu Chun? This is Professor Li, your general education teacher. Hello, Professor Li. The voice on the other end carried a hint of apology and helplessness. Originally, each subject's papers were graded separately, but Director Liu suddenly took all your papers and marked them all as failed. Liu Chen's brow furrowed instantly. Kevin Liu's triumphant and mocking face flashed through his mind. Serena, she noticed the change in his expression and leaned in worriedly. Liu Chen looked at her concerned eyes, and the slight ripple in his heart immediately subsided. He shook his head with a light laugh and calmly said into the phone, All right, Professor Li, I understand. Thank you. Hanging up the phone, he reassuringly patted Serena Shi's hand. It's a tiny matter, nothing to worry about. Immediately, he dialed another number. Hello? Tony, brother. Sigh, it's a bit embarrassing. I failed all my general education courses, except for my major. On the other end of the line, Tony Tang first burst into laughter, then his tone turned serious. Don't worry. If any of your grades on the report card sent to your home aren't perfect, you come find me. One phone call determined the fate of an aspiring college director. Director Liu, who had been full of vigor and referred to as Dean Liu at a family dinner, received a furious scolding from his superiors moments later. He was directly transferred back to the archives, his dream of becoming a vice dean shattered. After hanging up with Tony Tang, Liu Chen sent another message to Andian. Investigate if Director Liu and Kevin Liu from the music department have committed any illegal acts. He never just solved problems. He habitually eradicated those who created them as well. After dealing with this trivial interlude, Liu Chen's mood was completely unaffected. After dinner, he held Serena Shi's hand and strolled along the evergreen river. The evening breeze was gentle, the river water flowed grandly, and Serena Shi's stunning beauty, even concealed by loose clothing, still drew frequent glances from passers-by. Several elderly cyclists, distracted, even ended up falling into the ditch by the road. The next day, Liu Chen had planned to enjoy the comforts of home, but a phone call from Sophia Su made him change his mind. Blue Citigroup's stock price, without any warning, plummeted again. Liu Chen immediately understood that Ice Yen, that proud woman, had made her move. Far from being nervous, he became excited. He proactively called Ice Yen. Hello? Sister Ice, congratulations. Elaine Yen seems to have lost her temper after your actions. That's not like you. Ice Yen's voice was cautious. Are you being so kind to help me? Tell me, what do you want from me? Ahem. Liu Chen chuckled, cutting to the chase. Well, it's not that I want nothing. Last time you mentioned that Koenigsegg CCXR, I thought it was quite nice. There was a moment of silence on the other end, evidently stunned by the asking price of 50 million. Liu Chen unhurriedly laid out his offer. I'll help you drive down Blue Citigroup stock by another 5 percentage points. How about that? Fine. Ice Yen finally gritted her teeth and agreed. If you do it, the car is yours. Hanging up the phone, Liu Chen's face held a cunning smile. He turned to Sophia Su and gave his instructions. The top legal team I asked you to contact last time can be activated. I'll send you a video. Have the lawyers sue Bryce Bai for defamation and insult. Make sure it creates a big stir. At the same time, contact Andy and arrange for various media outlets to conduct interviews. The video, shot at Zijin Manor, documenting Bryce Bai's shameful behavior. This bomb, planted long ago, was finally ready to be detonated. Sophia Su's legal team proved astonishingly efficient. That very afternoon, a sternly worded lawyer's letter landed in front of Bryce Bai. He initially scoffed at it, thinking, what's so bad about cursing? He had cursed more people since he was a kid than he could count. But when he saw the name Liu Chen at the bottom, the arrogance on his face instantly froze. Elaine Yen, however, was unfazed. She casually remarked that such a minor issue could simply be handled by the company's legal department. Bryce Bai believed her, thinking he was safe with such a powerful backing. However, he underestimated Liu Chen's methods, and even more so, the power of public opinion in the internet age. The video of him acting arrogantly at Zijin Manor went viral like a virus. Immediately after, one incisive and highly inflammatory news article after another sprang up. Jining College student defies powerful elites, vows to make rich kid pay, money and morality. Where do you stand? Each piece accurately hit the public's pain points, nailing Bryce Bai to the pillar of shame as a bully. His arrogant face was photoshopped into various memes, becoming the laughingstock of the entire internet. Bryce Bai, trembling with rage, looked at the overwhelming barrage of insults on his phone and roared, Liu Chen, are you even a college student? Have you no shame? Before he finished speaking, he coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed, unconscious. This avalanche of public opinion directly impacted the capital market. Blue Citigroup's stock price, without any capital manipulation, plunged wildly, quickly hitting its daily limit down. Liu Chen, the mastermind behind it all, nodded in satisfaction upon seeing the results. He called Ice Yen, his tone relaxed. Hello, Sister Ice, mission accomplished, and then some. When can I pick up my car? Anytime. Ice Yen's voice held a hint of amusement. However, to get the car, you'll have to come yourself. No one else can pick it up. Liu Chen knew it wouldn't be that simple. He drove the Mercedes S600 with the Roy and Rex, speeding all the way to Zijin Manor. In front of Ice Yan's villa, the strangely shaped, silver-gray Koenigsegg CCXR sat quietly like a dormant beast. TSK this thing. 50 million. Liu Chen clicked his tongue, then turned and walked into the villa. In the dining room, Ice Yan had already prepared food and wine. After a battle of wits, Liu Chen cleverly deflected all her attempts at probing about marriage alliances and partnerships. Finally, under Ice Yan's resentful gaze, he successfully obtained the car keys. The Koenigsegg's engine roared deafeningly, then transformed into a silver-gray lightning bolt, disappearing at the end of Zijin Manor's tree-lined driveway. Liu Chen, driving his newly acquired $50 million supercar, was in an excellent mood. The thought of Serena Shi's enticing figure waiting for him at home made his foot press harder on the accelerator. Just then, an unfamiliar call came in. Liu Chen saw it was Scarlett Zhao and casually hung up. But then, another call came. Seeing the caller ID, Liu Chen's brow furrowed instantly. He pulled the car off the main road, stopped by the roadside, and then answered, "Hello? Mom." On the other end, only a hoarse hello came through, followed by a long silence. A sense of foreboding instantly gripped Liu Chen's heart. In his memories of his previous life, nothing major had happened to his family during the summer break of his sophomore year. But his mother's voice, suppressing pain and helplessness, churned his stomach. "Mom, what happened? Tell me." After his repeated urgent questions, his mother finally, with a choked sob, revealed a shocking turn of events he had never known in his previous life. "Last month, your dad was delivering goods for the factory and got into a car accident. His father's work-related car accident not only resulted in no workers' compensation, but the factory was demanding over 100,000 yuan in damages due to product loss. The other party had even hired a lawyer, threatening to sue and ruin his future. This sum, over 100,000 yuan, was an insurmountable mountain for their ordinary working-class family. No wonder their family's life and his previous life had become increasingly impoverished. It turned out that, without his knowledge, his parents had been silently enduring such immense suffering. A mix of guilt, heartache, and towering rage instantly surged to Liu Chen's head. His hands, gripping the steering wheel, had veins bulging and trembled slightly. "Mom, don't worry." His voice, strained from suppressing his emotions, was somewhat hoarse. "I've made some money at college, enough to handle this crisis. You two wait for me at the Provincial People's Hospital. I'll be there today." Hanging up the phone, Liu Chen's face was covered in frost. He immediately called Sophia Su, his voice cold as ancient ice. "No matter what it takes, no matter the cost, whether it's buying an airline route or a plane, I need to take off for North Province within an hour. Also, contact that top legal team again and have them go to North Province immediately to take over my parents' case." Sophia Su's executive ability once again shone through. In just over 10 minutes, using her connections and money, she successfully contacted a private jet about to fly to North Province and persuaded the owner to lend it for free. When Liu Chen sped to the airport in the Koenigsegg, Sophia Su and Ella Lin had already completed all the procedures and were waiting in the VIP channel. Minutes later, the group boarded the Gulfstream 550, worth over 300 million. The plane taxied down the runway, awaiting takeoff clearance. Just then, Liu Chen noticed an unfamiliar girl sitting in the front row of the cabin. She was wearing a crisp flight attendant uniform, with a beautiful face but an unusually arrogant demeanor, showing no warmth whatsoever. The plane began to climb. In the turbulence, the beautiful flight attendant unbuckled her seatbelt and slowly walked towards them. Inside the luxurious and serene cabin of the Gulfstream G550 private jet, thick carpets absorbed all noise, leaving only the low hum of the engine operating smoothly at 10,000 meters. Outside the window, the sea of clouds was sliced into golden fragments by the sunlight, rapidly sweeping backwards. However, this magnificent view couldn't calm Liu Chen's mind even slightly. He ignored the resentful flight attendant, who claimed to be the owner's sister, and simply waved for his bodyguard to escort her back to the crew area. The entire cabin became his mobile command center. He succinctly relayed his family's situation to David Zhang, the top lawyer, by his side. David Zhang listened, calmly adjusted his glasses, and reassured him. "Mr. Chen, please rest assured, this is a very ordinary civil case. My preliminary assessment is that as long as your father did not violate traffic regulations, he should not bear any responsibility. On the contrary, he should receive workers' compensation." The lawyer's professional judgment somewhat eased the anxiety in Liu Chen's heart, but the guilt stemming from his past life's oversight and the towering rage towards those who had humiliated his parents surged like high-altitude currents. He looked out the window, with only one thought in his mind. Reborn, he must make his parents' lives spectacular, no longer subject to anyone's contempt or humiliation. 2 hours later, the plane landed smoothly at the North Province Capital Airport. The group of 7 wasted no time, hurriedly boarding the waiting convoy of business vans and heading straight for the Provincial People's Hospital. In the hospital corridor, this intimidating group of well-dressed men, especially the 2 tower-like strong men at the front, caused passing patients and family members to instinctively give them a wide berth. Arriving at the door of Ward 6, Bed 54, Liu Chen was about to push it open when he heard a sharp female voice from inside, full of impatience and threat. "Wang Li, I'm only giving you a chance because you two are old employees. Sign this compensation agreement, and we'll drop the lawsuit. Otherwise, just wait for your son's bright future to be ruined by you two deadbeats." His mother's pleading, helpless voice followed immediately. "Manager Liu, our family really can't come up with that 100,000 yuan." Liu Chen couldn't listen anymore. The rage in his chest instantly erupted. He kicked open the ward door with a fierce shove, the heavy door slamming against the wall with a loud bang. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Pointing at the woman referred to as Manager Liu, his voice was cold as ice. "You get out." The sudden intrusion of a group of people startled Manager Liu, but when she heard Wang Li call out son, her confidence returned. You must be Liu Chun, right? Someone who's been to college should understand the law. Are you deaf? Liu Chen's voice was not loud, but it carried a chilling intensity. I told you to get out, didn't you hear me? Manager Liu still tried to say something, but Rex, standing nearby, stepped forward, grabbed her by the collar like a chicken, and lifted her off the ground. Amidst the woman's panicked screams and futile struggles, Rex strode to the door, swung his arm, and a dull thud and pained groan immediately echoed from outside as a heavy object hit the ground. Wang Li was completely stunned by this sudden scene. Liu Chun, however, calmly walked over to her and said softly, Mom, don't worry, she won't be a manager for long. On the hospital bed, his father, Chun Jiangwo, had thick plaster casts on both legs, but he was in good spirits. Father and son's gazes met in the air, 1,000 words unspoken. Was it an accident, or was someone deliberately framing you? Liu Chen asked in a low voice. Just a regular traffic accident, Chun Jiangwo grinned, revealing teeth stained yellow from smoking. I was afraid it would affect your studies, and if your grades dropped, your mom would give you hell, wouldn't she? Liu Chun was amused by his father's forced cheerfulness. He patted his chest and boasted, Dad, I'm not boasting, but at school, I haven't missed a single class, and all the teachers love me. Never mind your grades for now. Chun Jiangwo looked him up and down. Just by the way you boast, you really have a bit of my youthful swagger. As father and son bantered, Liu Chun remembered something important. He needed to find a specialist to re-examine his father, but with his current connections in his hometown, it was impossible. After thinking it over, he reluctantly made the call to the person he had just blackmailed. Sister Ice, I need a favor. Upon learning it concerned his family, Ician had no mind for jokes. After confirming the hospital bed number, she promised to contact someone immediately. Within half an hour, a tall, intellectual-looking beautiful doctor appeared at the ward door. She pushed up her black-framed glasses and her gaze swept over everyone, finally landing on Liu Chun, as she asked in a clear, pleasant voice, Excuse me, who is Ician's boyfriend? Liu Chun cursed Ice Yin a million times in his heart, but seeing his parents' questioning gaze, he could only grit his teeth and admit he was a friend. Under Dr. Gon's slightly teasing gaze, his father's re-examination proceeded smoothly and incredibly quickly. All test results were normal, and Chun Jiangwo could be discharged that same day. After bidding farewell to Dr. Gon, the group embarked on the journey back to their hometown, Lan County. In the spacious business van, Wang Li and Chun Jiangwo looked at the rapidly receding scenery outside the window, then at the discreetly luxurious car in front, and at the respectful subordinates to their son, feeling as if they were dreaming. As the convoy drove into the small county town that held all of Liu Chen's youthful memories, his heart was filled with emotion. He looked up his hometown's GDP from last year, 1.98 billion, a somewhat strange figure to him, because it was less than the cash in his personal account. Liu Chen didn't go straight home. Instead, he had the convoy stop at the most upscale Dragon Spring hotel in the county. Amidst his mother's nagging about the expensive room rate, he settled everyone in. Finally, in the hotel room, he closed the door, leaving only the three of them inside. Wang Li looked at the two bodyguards standing guard outside the door, her face full of shock, and pointed outside. They called you. Boss. Liu Chun pulled up a chair and sat before his parents, his expression calm and serious. Mom, yes, I am their boss. Chun Jiangwo was silent for a moment. He stared at his son, both familiar and strange, and slowly spoke, asking the question that had been on his mind the whole trip. Tell me, what have you been up to at school? In the Dragon Spring hotel room, the air seemed to solidify. The county's external noise was blocked by the thick glass, leaving only the faint hum of the air conditioner. Chun Jiangwo's eyes, bloodshot from years of labor, stared intently at his son, repeating the question word for word. Tell me, what have you been up to at school? Wang Li also stopped tidying the bed, watching him nervously, awaiting an answer. She had imagined countless possibilities. Perhaps her son had taken on a part-time job, or received a large scholarship, or perhaps he had gone down the wrong path. Liu Chen knew that the secret of his rebirth could never be revealed. He took a deep breath and, in as calm a tone as possible, began to recount a legendary story, simplified to its core. Roughly speaking, last semester, I started a small financial company. Its main business was stock trading, and well, I made a whole lot of money. The room fell into a long silence. Chun Jiangwo and his wife exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from anticipation to bewilderment. That's it. Chun Jiangwo couldn't help but ask. Yeah, that's it. It's not that complicated anyway. Liu Chen shrugged. Wang Li clearly couldn't accept such a simple explanation. She pressed on. How much money did you make? Enough to hire so many people? Bodyguards and secretaries. Here it was, the core question. Liu Chen quickly thought about how to describe the astronomical figure of 3.9 billion in a way they could understand without being scared speechless. A brilliant idea struck him, an analogy. Mom, let me give you an example. Suppose someone considers making 100 million as a small goal. Wang Li immediately rolled her eyes, cutting him off. Stop talking nonsense. What normal person considers 100 million a small goal? Liu Chun was speechless. He had forgotten that in his parents' world, 10,000 yuan was a huge sum, and 1 million yuan was enough for them to work their entire lives. 100 million was just a concept mentioned on the evening news. No, Mom, I'm just giving an example, he patiently explained. Just pretend there's such an abnormal person, okay? If 100 million is a small goal, how many do you think I made? Wang Li reluctantly accepted the premise. Fine, go on. What about your one small goal? I made. Liu Chen looked into his parents' eyes, stating each word clearly, 39 small goals. Time seemed to stand still. Wang Li instinctively found a chair and sat down steadily, feeling her weak legs finally supported. Chen Jiangwo's eyes widened, his mouth slightly agape, even forgetting to breathe. The room was deathly silent. Really? After a long moment, Chen Jiangwo squeezed out the 2 words. Really? Liu Chen nodded emphatically. Are you really, really sure? Wang Li asked again. Really, really sure. Even if it's really, really true, I still don't believe it, Wang Li replied, making Liu Chen feel helpless. He knew that words had lost their power at this point. He pulled out his phone, brought up the bank transfer notification, and handed it over. The 2 elders huddled together, pointing at the numbers on the screen like elementary school students. Units, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, billions. When they reached the unit, billion, their voices trembled. This string of numbers was longer than their phone numbers and ID numbers combined. Seeing his parents' still frozen minds, Liu Chen simply got up and brought a heavy travel bag from Roy Lei's room. The zipper opened, and bundles of crisp, new red banknotes, still smelling of ink, were exposed under the light without warning. Here, 500,000 in cash. There are a few more bags in the car. This visual impact completely shattered their last psychological defenses. Wang Li and Chen Jiangwo finally had to believe that their son, who was still in college, had really made 3.9 billion. But how? How did you suddenly learn to trade stocks? Wang Li's voice still carried a dreamy, unreal quality. An elective course, I studied macroeconomics, Liu Chen replied without batting an eye, crediting a class he had never taken seriously. Seeing that his parents had finally mostly accepted the fact, Liu Chen took out 2 bank cards and handed one to each of them. Stop overthinking it. Money is just a number. You each take 10 million as spending money. Chen Jiangwo's hands trembled with excitement. He was about to reach out, but Wang Li, with quick reflexes, snatched both cards. Son, I'll save it for you. She looked at her husband with the vigilance of a mother hen guarding her chicks. No one can squander this money. This is your fallback, just in case. Just in case something happens. Liu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mom, this money is for you to spend. To save for your wife's dowry, to buy a house, and for my grandson's formula, tuition, wedding, and baby money. Wang Li counted on her fingers, beginning a financial plan that spanned several generations. Liu Chen knew that changing his parents' deeply ingrained views on money would be a long and arduous journey. He decided to make his excuses and leave, citing work as a reason to slip out of the room. That night, many people couldn't sleep. Liu Chen was planning the future of his hometown. While in another room, Ella Lin tossed and turned in bed. Sophia Su's meaningful phone call had stirred ripples in her heart. Finally, at 1:30 in the morning, this usually obedient and charming female subordinate plucked up her courage and knocked on her boss's door. What's wrong, this late at night? Liu Chen looked at the shy and bashful Ella Lin at the door, finding it a little amusing. I just came to see if you needed anything from me. Her mustered courage vanished the moment she saw him. What could there be to do at 1:30 in the morning? Liu Chen smiled playfully. How about, you warm up my bed? See, can I? Ella's voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Liu Chen extended a finger and gently poked her smooth forehead. What are you thinking about all day in that little head of yours? Go back to sleep. We're going to buy a house tomorrow. Early the next morning, amidst his mother's incessant nagging, Liu Chen contentedly ate 2 bowls of millet porridge and 5 or 6 large steamed buns. He rejected his mother's suggestion to move back to the village and, instead, led the group, in 3 cars, grandly towards Mount Nanlon. There lay a priceless piece of land from his memories. The Nanlon Mountain Villa Complex, nestled in the Forest Oxygen Bar halfway up the mountain, boasted picturesque scenery and an excellent environment. The scorching heat of July was blocked here, leaving only refreshing coolness. The salesperson, Li Xinyu, an old acquaintance from Liu Chen's high school days, enthusiastically introduced the entire project, especially the Villa King, which overlooked the entire county and came with its own natural spring swimming pool. Brother Chun, this Villa King, including the house and yard, is a firm price of 3.5 million. How much? 3.5 million? Is that the down payment? Liu Chun was shocked by the price. He clearly remembered that a few years later, this very house would sell for 50 million. How many villas are there here in total? Liu Chen's gaze was no longer limited to the one before him. 12 detached houses, 24 townhouses, plus this Villa King, 37 in total. Liu Chen nodded and, with an undeniable tone, said to the dumbfounded Li Xinyu, bought. Huh. Li Xinyu's smile froze on his face. Brother Chen, which one have you set your sights on? I'll show you. No need to see them. Liu Chen's gaze had already drifted to his phone screen, where a brand new hidden message had just refreshed. Call your company's general manager. I'll take them all. From July 2nd to July 19th, Ocean Group's cumulative decline was 10%. From July 20th to July 30th, its cumulative increase was 35%. From July 31st to August 28th, its cumulative decline was 55%. A larger, more complex financial storm had arrived. Liu Chen's heart was instantly seized by this information. Get in the car, let's go down the mountain, he shouted to the still-dazed group, then hurriedly jumped into the car. He needed a signal now, immediately. The car sped down the mountain road. Finally, at a crossroads, a weak signal bar appeared on his phone screen. Stop, Liu Chen shouted, unceremoniously climbing onto the car roof and holding his phone high. Just then, a tractor chugged from a distance, and the burly man on it yelled, "Move, quickly move." The call connected at that moment. Liu Chen leaped off the car roof, his composure and calmness unsettling the three farmers blocking the road. They only wanted to rush to the veterinary station to save the two calves injured by the tractor, but they hadn't expected to encounter such a group of city folk driving luxury cars with such powerful auras. The burly man, seeing the thick wad of cash in Ella Lin's hand, felt a little nervous and wanted to return the 20,000 yuan they had just accepted. Liu Chen glanced at the dying calves on the tractor. He knew there was a high probability that these two small lives wouldn't make it. He pulled out another thick wad from Ella Lin's bag and, along with the previous 20,000, stuffed it into the burly man's arms. I apologize, we had an urgent matter just now and delayed you. This money is for compensation. Tens of thousands of yuan were merely a drop in the bucket for him, but for these three farmers, it was a huge sum that left them bewildered. While they were still stunned, the three luxury cars had already started and were steadily driving towards the county town. Back in the county town, Liu Chen split into two groups. Roy Lei and Ella Lin headed straight to the provincial capital to pick up additional personnel and purchase new cars. He, meanwhile, took Rex and, using his mother Wang Li's ID, went to the most upscale community in the county, Oasis Gardens. There, he bought an entire 4-story apartment building in the best location of the community, paying in full, and additionally received an adjacent 120 square meter large flat as a temporary residence for his parents, practically buying in bulk. At the entrance of the sales office, the wheel of fate spun again. A clear, pleasant voice pulled Liu Chen back to his youthful student days. Liu Chen, what a coincidence, you're on holiday. It was Angela Su, the girl who had left a colorful mark on his youth, but also hurt him the most, his white moonlight. Looking at her still bright and moving eyes, Liu Chen's heart felt no ripples. The sense of powerlessness he had been dominated by in his previous life had long been replaced by the strong confidence of this life. He smiled, calmly exchanged pleasantries with her, and naturally drove her back to her hotel in the Mercedes. Before bidding farewell, he called the number that had never been answered in his previous life. This time, the call was quickly picked up, and a lunch appointment for tomorrow was smoothly arranged. A plan to solve the future problem of his parents pushing him to get married had quietly taken shape in his mind. That night, Liu Chen took his parents to their new home in Oasis Gardens. When Wang Li learned that her son had not only bought a house, but an entire building, this simple rural woman almost jumped out of her wheelchair in shock. And when Liu Chen casually mentioned that he had also bought the entire Lawn Mountain Villa complex, Wang Li's eyes rolled back, and she happily fainted on the spot. The next day, at the Lawn County Court, Zhao Dehua sat triumphantly in the plaintiff's seat, waiting for his lawyer to make a grand showing. However, what he got was David Zhang, the lawyer, casually informing him, "Your lawyer has already been taken in." Taken where? Zhao Dehua hadn't reacted yet. Taken to the police station. David Zhang's lips curved into a cold smile. He's suspected of intimidation and has been detained. Next, I will file a lawsuit against him. But today, let's deal with your case first. Zhao Dehua was completely dumbfounded. The lawsuit hadn't even begun, and his own lawyer had been sent in by the other side. How could he possibly fight? The trial began. David Zhang opened his laptop. Multi-angle recordings from traffic cameras, regulations on work-related injuries, labor rights protection laws. Each piece of ironclad evidence, like a heavy hammer, shattered Zhao Dehua's baseless lawsuit. Ultimately, the judge ruled that Zhao Dehua not only had to compensate Chen Jiangwo and his wife for medical expenses, lost wages, emotional damages, totaling over 100,000 yuan, but also had to bear all court costs. However, this was just the beginning. Just as Zhao Dehua was preparing to accept this outcome of losing money to avoid disaster, David Zhang spoke again, his voice not loud, but it shook the entire courtroom. Your Honor, the above was merely a labor dispute. What I am about to say now is the main point. He paused, his gaze like a sword, piercing the ashen-faced Zhao Dehua. I am now filing a lawsuit against you in court. You are suspected of organizing illicit organizations, illegal business operations, forced buying and selling, intimidation, fraud, and other charges. All detailed evidence is on this disc. Zhao Dehua's fate was completely sealed at that moment. He would be transferred to the relevant departments, and what awaited him would be at least 10 years in prison. Walking out of the courthouse, the sun was shining brightly. The dark clouds on Chen Jiangwo and Wang Li's faces finally completely dissipated. Wang Li held her son's hand and began to plan grand schemes, such as bringing her grandfather home to enjoy his golden years, and also having grandchildren. Liu Chun smiled and humored her, but in his heart, he was pondering a deeper question. What exactly was money for? Delicacies would eventually become tiresome. Beautiful women. Well, maybe that wouldn't get tiresome. But besides these, what else could he do? An idea, like a flash of lightning, streaked across his mind. Lithography machines. That cutting-edge equipment that had bottlenecked China's technological lifeline in his previous life. A larger, more ambitious blueprint for a business empire was slowly unfolding in his mind. After handling family matters, Liu Chen enjoyed a rare period of leisure. He called Summer Xia, Lena Li, Yolanda Yu, and his other confidants one by one, comforting their longing with soft words. Finally, he walked into a Malatang restaurant he had missed for many years. Boss, 1 6 yuan bowl, extra numbing, extra spicy. Liu Chen's single yes was like a pebble tossed into the heart of a lake, creating ripples of shy and sweet happiness in Summer Xia's eyes. She playfully kissed his cheek and then, like a joyful butterfly, disappeared behind the dormitory door, leaving him with a laughing and crying. I'm going back to play games. On campus before exams, the air was thick with a mixture of anxiety and boredom. Everyone was like a wound-up machine, buried in books and practice questions. Even the usually most unreliable Jerry would ceremonially flip through the public course textbook tucked under his keyboard between games. After a few hours of boredom in the dorm, Liu Chen couldn't stand it anymore. With a single phone call, he pulled Summer Xia, who was deep in a dungeon raid, from the virtual world back to reality. Big pervert, why the rush? I was in a dungeon. Summer Xia pouted her cute little lips, half coquettishly, half complaining. What's so fun about a dungeon? If a dungeon isn't fun, what is? Are you fun? Yes, you're right. It was the same familiar 5-star hotel, the same luxurious suite with a panoramic view of the city's nightscape. After taking a few satisfactory photos from pretty angles in the room, Summer Xia was pulled into the inner room by Liu Chun. Outside, it was a sunny afternoon in Jining City, the sunlight just right. Inside, it was full of tender affection, blooming in an instant. The passionate wind turned into rain, rain into mist, and the mist lingered. The reluctance to part soon transformed into a lingering and unceasing song of love. When he woke up again, it was already sunset. Liu Chun lifted the still lazy Summer Xia from the bed and, ignoring her protests, carried her straight to the restaurant downstairs. The waiter recommended the Boston lobster that had just been flown in that day. Liu Chun directly ordered the largest one. When the ridiculously large, bright red beast, weighing 7 pounds, was brought to the table, Summer Xia's eyes widened. This one meal, just the lobster alone, cost over 4,000 yuan. Liu Chun ate with great relish. But in the end, he smacked his lips and thought that besides having a bit more meat, it didn't taste much different from regular shrimp. Before they parted, Summer Xia was reluctant to leave. Liu Chen smiled and promised that he would tell her as soon as he got back. After saying goodbye to the girl, he had just returned to his dorm when he received a call from Sam Shun, inviting him to Scholar's Grace Residences for an all-night study session. Liu Chun readily agreed, only to find that the so-called study supplies were actually cases of beer and a refrigerator full of barbecue ingredients. Leo, you just don't get it, do you? Sam Shin proudly announced his theory. A person's memory is at its best when they're slightly drunk. We'll have a few drinks first, then pull an all-nighter. I guarantee we'll remember everything. Of course, the result was a complete disaster. The next morning, Leo Chun was woken up by Kevin Liu's terrified scream. I haven't studied a single word. The exam is in 15 minutes. For people, 2 motorcycles, in a mad dash with sparks flying, barely made it into the classroom at the last second before the bell rang. For the first exam, Leo Chun managed to fill the paper with a combination of guessing and making things up. During the break, he stood downstairs smoking and sent new investment instructions to Sophia Su. But the second exam was much harder, and he was at a complete loss. Just then, a paper ball silently rolled over from the side. Leo Chun looked up and saw Chloe Tin sitting upright, as if nothing had happened. A little surprised, he opened the note. It contained the answers to the multiple choice and true or false questions. He didn't know what Chloe's intention was, But he didn't have time to think about it, and just copied them down. After the exam, Kevin's friend appeared out of nowhere again, taunting Leo Chun with sarcastic remarks. His roommate, Kevin Liu, immediately exploded, pointing his finger at the guy's nose and cursing. In the chaos, the friend actually pointed at Kevin and asked menacingly, "What's your name?" Kevin stuck out his neck and shouted in an extremely arrogant tone, "I, your grandfather, am none other than Jerry G." Leo Chun, who was listening on the side, almost choked on his own saliva. He knew that Jerry was now stuck with the blame for this one. On the night after the exam, the dorm was unusually quiet. Everyone was exhausted. Leo Chun was boredly watching a movie when his phone suddenly rang. It was Sandra's son. Her voice on the other end was clearly drunk. "Hello? Little brother, come down and have a drink with me." Leo Chun immediately put on his shoes and went downstairs. In the third cafeteria, Sandra's son was sitting alone, holding a single can of beer, but she was already 7 or 8 parts drunk. When she saw Leo Chun, she was like an injured kitten, resting her head weakly on his chest without a word. Leo Chun didn't ask, just held her quietly, letting her show him her vulnerability and helplessness without reservation. After a long time, Sandra finally spoke, her voice hoarse. "Do you know about the girl who fell from building 15? She was my best friend." Sandra's voice was very soft, but it was like a cold chisel, chipping away at a sealed, bloody past. In their freshman year, they were tricked into a pyramid scheme, and it was her best friend who had fought desperately to get her out. However, during her recovery, her best friend was diagnosed with leukemia. Her family was already poor. Her father sold everything they owned and borrowed money from everywhere, but could only raise a tenth of the treatment cost. That money was her only hope of survival. But a financial advisor convinced her desperate father to invest all the life-saving money into a stock he recommended. Sandra's body began to tremble uncontrollably. In the end, it was all gone. She didn't want to be a burden on her family anymore, so one night, she jumped from the 16th floor. Her father was heartbroken, and not long after, he followed her. "I want to do something for her." Sandra's tears fell hot on Leo Chen's arm. "But I have no way, no connections, so I can only climb up. Maybe the higher I climb, the clearer I can see, and the more likely I can find those scammers." The Jinning Financial Circle. A stock recommendation scam. A cold name slithered out from the deepest part of Leo Chen's memory like a venomous snake. Stan Sure, Sandra's best friend, and himself in his previous life, had both fallen victim to his invisible, dark hand. If his calculations were correct, then Mark Xing was just a dog he kept, and Stan Sure was the real crocodile, hidden behind the scenes, who had devoured countless families. On a scorching summer afternoon in Lon County, the air was thick with the smell of sun-baked asphalt. Inside the ULI Old Beijing Hot Pot restaurant, an old air conditioner valiantly blew cold air, creating a strange standoff with the simmering red broth in the copper pot. This was a place Leo Chun had yearned for but couldn't afford in high school. Today, he finally sat here, not for the sake of his palate, but to settle an old score from his youth. Across from him sat Angela Sue, the girl who had once consumed his entire youth, as remote and pure as moonlight. She was still as beautiful, a faded dress doing little to conceal her natural elegance. Yet, in her bright, captivating eyes, there was now a subtle hint of nervousness and unease. 2 years had passed, and everything had changed. The boy who used to blush in her presence now calmly dictated the pace of the meal, a composure that felt alien to her. "This place has good food. I've missed it for a long time," Leo Chen said, dropping a plate of thinly sliced lamb into the boiling pot. The rising steam blurred his expression. "Really? It's my first time here," Angela Sue replied softly, her hands politely resting on her lap. "Eat. Don't be shy." Leo Chen picked up some cooked lamb with his chopsticks and placed it in her bowl, his movements as natural as if they had never been apart. They clinked beer glasses, the crisp sound echoing loudly in the spacious restaurant. At the next table, Wildcat and 2 other burly men ate silently, their figures like mountains, yet as quiet as statues. After a few casual exchanges about their studies, Leo Chun suddenly put down his chopsticks, his gaze sharp and direct, meeting her evasive eyes. The question that had plagued him for 2 lifetimes finally came out. "Why did you reject me back then and choose to be with that short guy, Victor Wong?" Angela Sue's body trembled. That name, like a needle, instantly pierced the calm she had meticulously maintained. She hesitated for a long time, and finally, her voice trembling slightly, revealed the secret she had kept hidden for years. I owed him money." Leo Chun was stunned. He had considered countless possibilities, but he had never imagined that the betrayal that had torn him apart was, at its heart, a cold, calculated transaction. 50,000. Angela Sue's voice was as light as a sigh. In that era, for a poor family, 50,000 yuan was enough to crush everything. She spoke disjointedly, telling her story of an alcoholic, gambling father, a frail, sickly mother, and younger siblings who needed to be fed. She needed money to go to school, money to escape that hopeless home with her siblings. And Victor Wong, at her most desperate moment, had extended that offer of kindness with devilish terms attached. 2 lines of clear tears ran down her smooth cheeks. Liu Chen silently handed her a tissue, his heart unmoved. He was satisfied with her words. I needed money. In this world, any problem that could be solved with money was, for him, no problem at all. The white moonlight he had once gazed at from afar, now stained with worldly dust, was no longer so unattainable. Just then, the hot pot restaurant's door curtain was roughly pushed aside, and a figure, smelling strongly of alcohol, burst in. Angela Sue looked up, her face instantly turning ashen. Victor Wong. The newcomer was indeed the pale-faced short man. When he saw Liu Chen, his eyes instantly blazed with fury. Liu Chen, it's you again, damn it. Are you haunting me? Angela Sue is my woman. Liu Chen ignored him, just calmly looking at Angela Sue. You're his woman? Angela Sue hesitated, then shook her head vigorously. See? She's not. Liu Chen shrugged. Not. Victor Wong, his head muddled by alcohol, pointed at Angela Sue's nose and cursed. Pay me back. Damn it, for all these years, it was hard enough for me to even hold your hand, and you turn around and go on a date with this son of a bitch? Are you trying to act pure? He grew more agitated, grabbed a glass of beer from the table, and violently splashed it on Angela Sue's face. Cold beer mixed with foam trickled down Angela Sue's hair, making her look disheveled. Victor Wong raised his hand, about to slap her, when his wrist was firmly caught by an iron-like hand. Liu Chen kicked him in the ribs. Victor Wong grunted, directly falling to the ground. You just wait. Victor Wong struggled to pull out his phone and started calling for backup. I'll make sure you don't leave Lon County today. Before long, small motorized rickshaws, bicycles, cheap local cars, all sorts of transportation, carrying 30 to 40 hooligans, surrounded the small hot pot restaurant, making it impassable. Liu Chen, before you had Jeff Jia and them protecting you. I'd like to see who protects you today, damn it. Victor Wong climbed up from the ground, a cruel smile on his face, and with a wave of his hand, was about to order an attack. Liu Chen, however, leisurely sat down, a slight smile still on his face. The moment the group of hooligans surged forward, the 3 statues at the next table moved. Wildcat's figure was as swift as a ghost. He made no superfluous movements, just simple, direct punches and kicks. Each strike was accompanied by the crisp sound of breaking bones and muffled groans of pain. The other bodyguard was like a moving fortress. Any approaching attack was easily deflected and then retaliated with even fiercer force. The scene was a complete massacre. A few minutes later, the restaurant fell silent, leaving only groans from the floor. Liu Chen then slowly stood up, stepping over the twisted bodies, and walked to the still-shocked Angela Sue. He naturally took her cold hand and led her away from the mess. Outside the door, the sun was still glaring, and a black Mercedes S-Class sedan had quietly parked by the roadside at some point. Go home. Liu Chen released her hand, his voice devoid of emotion. In a few days, I'll visit your house. A series of sudden events left Angela Sue's mind blank. She could only nod mechanically as driver Lou respectfully escorted her into the luxury car she had only seen on television. Liu Chen watched her retreating figure, then turned and coldly glanced at the bruised and swollen Victor Wong in the restaurant, before calling Andy in. Look into someone. He's involved in predatory lending. His business is likely shady. Also, send people to Lon County permanently to establish a branch. We'll set up our future security company training base here. Back home, Wang Li was happily chatting with Ella Lin, holding her hand. Liu Chen entered and announced, Mom, in a few days, I'm bringing a girlfriend home for a visit. Didn't you say you didn't have a girlfriend? Wang Li was stunned. Aren't you anxious for me to find one? Liu Chen smiled like a cat who had stolen a fish. This time, I found a local girl. If you approve, we'll get married by the end of the year, and I'll try to get you a grandson before I graduate. Before he finished speaking, Wang Li had already grabbed the clothes hanger from the corner of the wall. You little rascal. You stop right there. The 30-kilometer drive from the county town back to Chun Village was a cruel test for the luxury sedan. The Mercedes S600's proud air suspension struggled on the dirt road, riddled with potholes from heavy trucks. Liu Chen was jolted back and forth, and the brand-new luxury car was soon covered in a thick layer of dust, blending in with the barren land. However, this bumpy ride reconnected his heart, which had been swelling with wealth, back to earth. The convoy stopped at the village entrance. Everything here was both familiar and strange. Liu Chen didn't go into the village with his parents. Instead, he walked alone towards the desolate mountain behind the village. He was going to find someone, a brother who, in his previous life, had sacrificed his own freedom for Liu's, stone sure. As soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw a young man, as strong as a bear, carrying a grunting wild boar on his shoulder, yet still moving swiftly. His bronze muscles, in the sunlight, reflected explosive power. Stone sure, Liu Chen called out. The young man turned his head at the sound. Seeing Liu Chen, a bright smile spread across his honest face. Liu Chen, you're back. There was no excessive formality, only the purest joy. Stoneshire's eyes were solely on his childhood playmate, completely ignoring the expensive luxury cars and well-dressed bodyguards behind them. Stoneshire put down the wild boar, scratched the back of his head with a hand like a palm fan, and said with a simple smile, "Master's doing well. He said you're about to strike it rich and told me to follow you from now on." Leo Chun clicked his tongue. He was immune to old Master Huang's talk of destined for greatness. The two walked one after another up the winding mountain path. Stoneshire carried 2 cases of Moutai in one hand, and the 100-pound wild boar on his shoulder, yet he walked as if on flat ground. In contrast, Leo Chun, who exercised regularly, was left panting. At the mountain top was still the same dilapidated Taoist temple. An old Taoist priest, wearing a worn-out robe, with a wine flask in one hand and a pipe in the other, lay in a rocking chair, squinting in the sun. "I've calculated, a distinguished guest is coming today. Old master, didn't you say I'd strike it rich? I'm so down on my luck I can barely afford to eat," Leo Chun said, annoyed. "Impossible." Old Master Huang suddenly opened his eyes, a glint flashing in his cloudy pupils. "You, young man, are destined for greatness. It's just around the corner." Immediately, his attention was drawn to the liquor in Stoneshire's hand. He snatched it, roughly tore open the box, took a big gulp, then smacked his lips, a look of disdain on his face. "What is this? Weak. Next time, don't bring me anything less than 65 proof." Leo Chun didn't bother to argue. He went straight to the point. "Old master, come down the mountain with me. I'll build you a magnificent temple." "No." Old Master Huang lay back in his rocking chair, looking at the distant sea of clouds. "This is where dragon veins converge. I'll be buried here when I die, and I'll strike it rich in my next life." Leo Chun knew the old man was stubborn, so he didn't press further. He knew old Master Huang had real skills, having once fought a black bear barehanded in his youth, and even cooked the bear's paw afterwards. He only said, "Fine, if you won't come down, I'll take Stoneshire. I'll hire 2 nannies for you later." "Go on." Old Master Huang waved his hand, as if shooing away a fly. "He's eaten my free food for 20 years. Now he can freeload off Leo Chun." Before Leo left, he seemed to remember something, took out a worn, yellowed, thread-bound book from his robe, and tossed it to Leo Chun. "I see you've been indulging too much and your body is depleted. Practice this when you have time. Remember, don't pass it on." Leo Chun took the book, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Down the mountain, Stoneshire got into the most spacious SUV, officially becoming a member of Leo Chun's security team. The convoy then drove into the village, and under the envious gazes of the villagers, stopped in front of Leo Chun's uncle's house. Without unnecessary words, Leo Chun went straight in with his bodyguards and brought out his frail and severely neglected grandfather, Elder Chun, from his sharp-tongued aunt's clutches. As for his aunt's family's shocked and regretful expressions upon seeing the convoy, Leo Chun had no interest in even glancing at them. On the way back to the county town, a completely different hidden message suddenly popped up on Leo Chun's phone. July 8th, cotton futures rose 3.8%. July 9th, cotton futures rose 3.5%. At the same time, various disreputable websites were flooded with expert analyses predicting a crash in cotton prices. A cold curve formed on Leo Chun's lips. Stan Sure, his arch-nemesis from his previous life, finally couldn't hold back and was making his move. He immediately called Sophia Su. "Hello? Is the futures account set up?" "Excellent. Tomorrow at market open, 10 times leverage, buy cotton futures." Back at their new home in Oasis Gardens, after settling his grandfather, Leo Chun arranged for his Uncle Jian's family, who had shown him great kindness, to be flown back from out of town that very night. Faced with the palace-like mansion and his nephew's unfathomable wealth, this simple man absolutely refused to accept the property Leo Chun offered. In desperation, Leo Chun had to come up with another solution. "Uncle Jian, if you don't want the house, you have to help me with something else. I want to open a large supermarket in the county, and you and my dad will manage it for me." Amidst Wang Li's playful remark, "Comrade Chen Jiangwo, your son is promoting you. You'd better be up to the task." This new project concerning the family's future was decided. After dictating the future careers of the Chun Jiangwo brothers, Leo Chun leisurely went upstairs, returning to his private space. Downstairs, Wang Li was enthusiastically arranging rooms for Stoneshire and Uncle Jian's family. The entire villa was filled with a warm atmosphere of surviving a calamity and finally finding peace after hardship. In the study on the 3rd floor, Leo Chun lit a cigarette. In the swirling smoke, he was video calling Sophia Su, who was in Jinning, systematically planning the independent operation of the security company and the construction of the Mount Nanlon training base. A grand commercial blueprint was quietly being outlined on the mountaintop of this small county town. Late into the night, most people in the villa had fallen into a deep sleep, filled with dreams of the future. Only Ella Lin tossed and turned in bed. Sophia Su's suggestive words, "Seize the opportunity," echoed like a mantra in her mind. Finally, at 1:30 in the morning, This usually obedient and charming female subordinate plucked up her courage, dressed in her pajamas, and knocked on her boss's door. What's wrong, this late at night? Liu Chen looked at the shy and bashful Ella Lin at the door, finding it a little amusing. I just came to see if you needed anything from me. Her mustered courage vanished the moment she saw him. What could there be to do at 1:30 in the morning? Liu Chen smiled playfully. How about you warm up my bed? See, can I? Ella's voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. Liu Chen extended a finger and gently poked her smooth forehead. What's going on in that little head of yours all day? Go back to sleep. We're going to buy a house tomorrow. Early the next morning, Liu Chen contentedly finished his breakfast amidst his mother's incessant nagging. He rejected his mother's suggestion to save money and directly got into the car, heading towards the village that held his deepest adolescent obsession. After 2 hours of bumpy roads, the convoy finally arrived in front of Angela Sue's dilapidated mud brick house. When Angela Sue ran out of the house, she was still as bright and moving as ever, as if the poverty and embarrassment of the world could not tarnish her in the slightest. However, as Liu Chen's gaze swept over the walls covered with yellowed newspapers and the timid eyes of her 3 younger siblings, his heart felt no ripples. He didn't bother with pleasantries and led her directly outside the yard, cutting straight to the point. Talking about feelings is too luxurious. I plan to use a simpler method to handle our relationship. He looked at the distant fields, his tone as flat as if discussing the weather. A transaction. I'm buying out your future life. Angela Sue was stunned by these sudden words. Liu Chen didn't give her time to think. He slowly opened the trunk of the Mercedes. As the trunk lid rose, 50 bundles of crisp, new red banknotes, still smelling of ink, unexpectedly assaulted her vision. Use this. Liu Chen's voice was devoid of emotion. This is just the first payment. If you agree, there will be an additional 20,000 yuan each month. What you need to provide is everything. Angela Sue's breathing quickened. 50,000 yuan was enough to completely pull her struggling family out of their misery. And all she had to do was play a role, Liu Chen's contract girlfriend, to deal with his parents nagging about marriage. This was a mutually agreeable transaction, even a godsend. No need to think, I agree. Her answer was more decisive than Liu Chen expected. She took out a pen from her pocket and, with a flourish, signed her name on the harsh contract drafted by the top legal team, then pressed her fingerprint firmly. I'm tired of struggling at the bottom of life. She looked up, her eyes gleaming with a determined light. I want to change. You can give me what I want, and I'll give you everything. It's fair. Liu Chen was satisfied. He took Angela Sue back to Lawn Mountain Villa and, in front of his mother, Wang Li, put on a show of meeting the parents. Wang Li looked at the impossibly beautiful future daughter-in-law, her face practically overflowing with smiles. She then turned and gave Liu Chen's backside a whack with a broom, but her words were playful. You little rascal. Which one is your girlfriend? You can't be two-timing. Liu Chen casually humored her, secretly congratulating himself on his brilliant decision. With Angela Sue at home to appease his parents, he could finally be free to pursue his own desires and spend his life with his many beauties. This ultimate problem that had plagued him for 2 lifetimes, this last stumbling block to an amazing life, had finally been completely removed by him in the simplest, most direct, and most effective way. After taking Angela Sue home and instructing her to take care of her family's affairs, Liu Chen's life seemed to have no further worries. He smiled at Uncle Jian and his father. Uncle Jian, Dad, let's go look at storefronts. On a sunny morning at Lawn Mountain Villa, a family meeting about the future, under Liu Chen's undeniable arrangements, quickly drew to a close. Looking at the model of the single-story commercial building, spanning thousands of square meters like a palace, Chen Jiangwo and Uncle Jian still felt like they were dreaming. Son, do you really want us to manage such a big store? Chen Jiangwo still couldn't quite believe it. Dad, you're like this now, just stay at home. Why run around? Liu Chen casually grumbled as he ate his porridge. Chen Jiangwo's eyes widened. He remembered the injustice of being thrown under the bus by his son last night. You little rascal, you dare to complain about me? Liu Chen ignored his father's protest and directly took 2 printed plane tickets from Ella Lin, handing them to his father and uncle. These are your tickets to Shanghai tonight. I've arranged everything for your visit and training. This damnable sense of control completely broke the spirit of the Chen Jiangwo brothers. Under Wang Li's threat, if you dare to waste that 3,000 yuan first-class ticket, I'll break your legs. The 2 middle-aged men, like children about to be sent to school, were bundled off to the airport without even taking a sip of water. After seeing his family off, Liu Chen's pace of life instantly slowed down. However, just as he was preparing to enjoy a moment of peace, a text message from Sandra's son, like a summer breeze, drifted onto his phone. Junior, I'm already in the provincial capital. Do you want to come out and play? Junior? Today I'll definitely make you reevaluate me. Liu Chen replied to the message, greeted his mother, and then drove off with his bodyguards to the provincial capital. He had thought Sandra was only taking on part-time work because she was short on cash, But he hadn't expected that beneath the alluring and charming exterior of the senior lay a rare softness and resilience. All the money she earned was sent to her deceased best friend's lonely mother. When Liu Chen offered to help her, she just smiled and shook her head. Didn't you say I should plan for my own future? Making money is one thing, but mainly, it's about learning professional skills. Otherwise, if you lose your job later, what will I use to support you? Liu Chen was amused by her words. He knew this girl was worth more of his tenderness. They didn't go to a five-star hotel, nor did they eat any exotic delicacies. They strolled along the 100-year-old Central Avenue in the provincial capital. The cobblestones beneath their feet, smoothed by time, reflected the neon lights of the Russian-style buildings on either side. They ate grilled cold noodles and guabao roe from a street vendor and snuggled together by the cold river to keep warm, letting the evening breeze ruffle their hair. They tacitly avoided mentioning the future or making any grand promises, simply enjoying the warmth and tranquility of the moment. Early the next morning, Liu Chen, half asleep, felt a wet and soft touch on his cheek. When he opened his eyes, Sandra Sun had already quietly left for her part-time job at an interior design company. Her faint scent still lingered on his pillow. Liu Chen stretched. He didn't get up immediately. Instead, he called Sophia Su. The video connected, and Sophia Su's slightly tired but still beautiful face was filled with excitement. Boss, about the blockchain and Bitcoin you asked me about, I've pretty much figured it out. Excellent. Liu Chen's spirits instantly lifted. Then let's begin, acquire discreetly. Then, his tone shifted, becoming cold and sharp. Also, go all out, 10 times leverage, buy cotton futures contracts. Meanwhile, on the other side of Jinning, Stan Sher was issuing the same instructions to his team, but in the exact opposite direction. Drive down the price of cotton completely. A bloody struggle between long and short positions officially began. However, Stan Sher didn't know that every one of his frantic sell-offs was like the most precise feed order, greedily swallowed whole by Tengxiao Capital's traders. After dealing with the battle involving hundreds of millions, Liu Chen's life switched back to an easy pace. At noon, he had lunch with Sam Shun, who was also in the provincial capital. Listening to his friend's confusion about the future, he just smiled and said, after graduation, stay in Jinning and collect scrap with me. In the evening, to keep a promise, he met Dr. Gone at a charming little restaurant by the ice river. The beautiful doctor had taken off her white coat and changed into a fashionable casual outfit, making her even more alluring and refined. Hey Liu Chen, Dr. Gone adjusted her black-framed glasses, gossiping with a curious look. How did you manage to win over ice? I know for a fact that the suitors she sent to the hospital are too many to count on one hand. Liu Chen felt a headache coming on and could only tell the truth. Actually, she was just joking. We're just ordinary friends. Oh, Dr. Gone gave him an I understand look, lowering her voice. I see. You haven't won over her CEO dad yet. So you want to keep this relationship a secret, right? Sigh. Ice is actually quite pitiful, but it's good now. With you to share her burdens, at least she has someone to talk to. Liu Chen completely gave up on explaining. He realized he seemed to be deeply entangled in Ice Yan's web of boyfriend claims, unable to extricate himself. After that dinner full of misunderstandings with Dr. Gone, Liu Chen politely declined her invitation to continue strolling and returned to his hotel alone. He lay on the soft, large bed, the light from his phone screen illuminating his sharply defined face. On the screen, messages from several girls flickered, but the one Liu Chen chatted with the most, the one who made Liu Chen feel at ease, was Sandra Sun. After some playful banter and back and forth, their conversation finally ended with a good night, Junior. Liu Chen helplessly tossed his phone aside, mockingly cursing himself. Damn it, none of them can challenge me. The next day, Liu Chen returned from the provincial capital to Lan County. Upon entering his home, Liu Chen was greeted by a strong sense of domesticity. His grandfather lay in the yard, enjoying the air conditioning and listening leisurely to folk tunes on the radio. Liu Chen's mother and aunt, meanwhile, enthusiastically uprooted all the valuable flowers and plants in the backyard, transforming it into a more practical vegetable garden. Seeing his family living in such comfort and peace because of Liu Chen, a sense of accomplishment far stronger than that of making money arose in Liu Chen's heart. The allure of wealth was unfolding around Liu Chen in the most comforting way. At the same time, this power was also changing others' lives in a completely different manner. In Angela Su's hometown, Angela Su's mother stared in shock at the newly built brick house that had sprung up before Angela Su's mother. Upon learning that Angela Su's daughter's new boyfriend had funded it, Angela Su's mother didn't ask many questions, only cautioned her daughter not to let her gambling father know there was money at home. And on the bund in Shanghai, Chen Jiangwo and Uncle Jian looked bewildered at the dazzling night view. Their lives, too, were about to be forcibly pushed onto a brand new track. With family matters settled, Liu Chen finally enjoyed some rare leisure. That evening, a few of Liu Chen's closest high school friends organized a gathering. Liu Chen walked into the smoky private room of the restaurant alone and was immediately surrounded by familiar, boisterous voices. Leo's here. Damn it, you came back without calling me. Drink 3 glasses by yourself. Faced with his brother's enthusiastic assault, Liu Chen, without a word, downed 3 beers, finally appeasing their anger. Here, there was no billionaire, no strategic capital magnate, only Leo, who could be freely teased about his youthful blunders. They chatted about who had failed a course, who had a new girlfriend, and the conversation eventually, inevitably, turned to Angela Sue. Mickey advised Liu Chen to let go, but Jeff Jia said Liu Chen was deeply in love. Liu Chen just laughed and waved his hand. Damn it, my girls are practically a social circle. Why talk about her? Come on, drink. Everyone thought Liu Chen was just boasting and started to jeer, and the private room was once again filled with lively air. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, the group staggered out of the restaurant, preparing to head to a KTV. As Liu Chen and his friends were hailing a taxi by the roadside, they bumped head-on into another group, led by their old acquaintance, Victor Wong. Mickey shouted, "Holy shit," and Jeff Jia instinctively stepped in front of Liu Chen, preparing for a fierce fight. However, to their surprise, Victor Wong's arrogance instantly froze when Victor Wong saw Liu Chen. Victor Wong seemed to want to say something, but then glanced at the well-dressed strong men who had appeared behind Liu Chen at some point. Those strong men just stood quietly, their gazes like hawks, locked onto Victor Wong. Victor Wong clenched and unclenched his fists, finally just stiffly telling his companions, "We're not taking a taxi anymore," and then slunk away in another direction. This small incident didn't affect the brothers' mood. They partied until 1 in the morning before dispersing. A pure friendship was best unleashed in alcohol and song. Bidding farewell to his friends, Liu Chen got into a taxi, followed by 2 Land Rover Defenders at a safe distance. The poor taxi driver, halfway through the ride, was so scared that he refused to go any further, thinking he was being targeted by the mafia. Liu Chen, helpless, had to get out early, had his bodyguard pay double the fare, and finally returned to the brightly lit Lawn Mountain Villa. Early the next morning, a news pop-up completely woke up the just-roused Liu Chen. The lower reaches of the Yellow River, the 3 major cotton-producing areas, would experience heavy rainfall in the coming week. Liu Chen couldn't help but laugh aloud. Stand sure, even heaven can't stand it anymore. As expected, the futures market opened, and cotton prices surged. 2 days later, Liu Chen easily pocketed 240 million from this destined victory, while Liu Chen's arch-nemesis, Stand Sure, suffered yet another bitter defeat. Having concluded the cotton futures trades, Liu Chen boarded a flight to Western Sichuan. At the Shuangliu airport exit, Summer Xia was already eagerly awaiting Liu Chen. As soon as Summer Xia saw Liu Chen, Summer Xia let out a cheer and, like a koala bear, leaped onto Liu Chen, her legs tightly wrapped around Liu Chen's waist. "Big Bad Wolf, did you miss me?" Her voice was full of unadulterated sweetness. Under the envious, jealous, and resentful gazes of Tony Tang and others, Liu Chen took Summer Xia directly to Summer Xia's home. Summer Xia's parents were on business trips year-round, so this 130-square-meter apartment was their private world. However, just as Summer Xia finished showering and the two were about to enjoy their long-awaited reunion, the sound of a key unlocking the door suddenly came from outside. Liu Chen's heart instantly leaped to his throat. Liu Chen quickly grabbed his shoes, rolled over, and ducked under Summer Xia's bed. Almost simultaneously, the clear voices of a middle-aged couple came in. "You brat, why aren't you wearing your pajamas?" It was Summer Xia's mother's stern voice. Summer Xia, wearing only her underwear, stared blankly at Summer Xia's parents who had suddenly appeared. Still startled, Summer Xia ran back into Summer Xia's room and locked the door from the inside. Summer Xia rummaged through everything, looking for Liu Chen, until a voice softly emanated from under the bed. I'm here." Summer Xia looked at Liu Chen calmly arranging a plush toy to cushion Liu Chen's head, then at the shoes Liu Chen had brought in, and couldn't help but murmur, "Liu Chen, you're so experienced."